So I guess everyone is ready with their Google Colab open. This is the notebook that we'll be working on. And firstly, we'll be starting with Python introduction. I won't be using Google Colab. I have a local notebook software downloaded. This is Jupyter Notebook, and this comes under the Anaconda software. So if you want to use this, you can download Anaconda. It is a very big software, so you can use Google Cloud. If your laptop will not handle such a big software, that also works. But Anaconda also works, so anything works. So both are almost the same. Nothing is different. Just one is running on your local computer. The other one is running on Google Cloud Platform. So now we'll be starting with Python introduction. As we have already told, these whatever these are called cells. And to execute or run the command in a cell, you need to press Shift and Shift Enter. You can have a normal cell or you can have a code cell, and you can also have headings. To add headings, say like if I want to add some text here, then I will just convert it to Markdown. This is the text cell that was on Google Colab. I can type some normal text, or I can make it a heading by just adding a hashtag. And the number of hashtags will decide the size of this heading. What should be the size? So this goes from H1 to H6. And anyone having the knowledge of HTML, this is just some basic HTML syntax going on here. You can even type this thing and run it, and this will perform the same thing that it does in HTML. So this was all about the text boxes. Let's start with what Python is and what is the basic syntax of Python. So talking about any language, the first thing or the first program that you build in it is the hello world command. And the hello world command is a combination of two things: the print statement of the basic syntax and the print statement of that language, and second is a string, that is the hello world string. In Python, you don't need any other syntax. You can directly write the statement that you want to execute, which in our case will be the print function. The print function will basically print on the output screen anything that you have inputted inside of it. And second is the string. So to declare a string in Python, you can either use the double inverted commas or the single inverted commas, both work. So if I just press Shift Enter on this cell, then you can see that hello world will be printed. This is the number of the cell that this is basically, yes, the number on which it has been run. So this is the first. If I run it again, this is second, and now if I go and run it again, this will be the third. So this is how the numbering goes. Again, as I said, single inverted commas also work. So if you just replace both of these double inverted commas with single inverted commas and run this statement, then also it will do the same thing. So this is how the hello world in Python can be done. Anything that you write inside of the print statement will be printed. This does not need to be a string really. This can be a number also. So if I want to print 5, then you can directly write 5, because 5 you want it as a number and not as a string. Okay, so if I do this 5 will be printed. In notebooks, there is a unique feature that you won't find in the basic IDEs for Python, that whatever the last thing you have written in the cell will be printed, and it won't need a print function for it. So you can see hello world is written here and it is just written, and if I just run it, hello world is still being printed. And if I just write, say if I just press enter and I press 5 here, then you can see 5 is being printed, but hello world is not being printed, because what it does, it just prints the last variable that is being written in the cell. And if I want to print both of these, then I just need to add a print statement in front of both. So if I just do this print hello world, and if I do this print 5, then both of these things will be printed. And for this 5, even if I move this print statement, because it is the last line of the cell, then also it will be printed without the print statement. So this is how you can print things in Python and inside of the notebooks. Next is assigning values to a variable. Now a variable is anything in which you can assign a value which is a different thing. So say there's a very big value. I have here taken only hello, but suppose the string was hello, I am Devansh, and this is a hands-on workshop on data analytics. Now, whenever I want to use this string, I will have to type this entire thing, and I don't want to do that. Say I have to use this exact sentence 10 times. I don't know where, but maybe I have to use it. So every time I will have to write this entire thing. Hello, I am Devansh Tiwari and this is a data analytics hands-on workshop. I don't want to do this. So I can just basically assign it to a variable. A variable is just like a name. Like you have a name, like I have a name, I'm Devansh. So like whatever I am or whoever I am given a name, Devansh. So whenever someone will say Devansh, I know it is calling me. So in this step, I'm assigning this entire string to this term, which I'm naming variable. This can be anything. So if I just run it and I just type variable, then we know that in the notebook, the last variable that we have written will be printed. So we can say, see the entire thing that we have written is print. And similarly, if you use the print statement, then also it will work. And variable name is not necessary. You can assign anything really, like ffyr. This does not mean anything, but suppose this is what we have written. Let me just replace it everywhere. So if I just run this now, ffyr contains this entire string. And similarly, if I print ffyr, then it will give this output. And if I run ffyr again, then it will give this output. One thing that you can see is, like, if I print it with the print statement, then it does not show the double exclamation mark, because the print statement knows that it has to print a variable's value. But when I write it directly, then it has to tell me that what kind of variable I am printing. It is just printing the variable value that is being stored. So a string is stored, so it will return the double inverted commas also along with it. Also, a unique feature of Python, which is in very less of the languages, is that you can use single inverted commas inside of double inverted commas and double inverted commas inside of single inverted commas. Now, if I just write a double inverted comma, it won't work, because you can see this is a string now and this part won't be recognized. This is just going to raise an error. But I can put multiple single inverted commas and it won't raise any error, because the string is starting here and the string is ending here, and whatever is in between is just a part of the string. So this is how variables work. Next is combining two types of variables or two things inside of a print statement. Basically printing multiple values in a single print statement. How do we do that? In Python, that is done by the comma operator. If you put any two things inside of a print statement, let's just ignore the variable for one and see. Like I say a print statement, I put hi in there, I put a comma, and I put Devansh there. I run it. So you can see hi is also printed, Devansh is also printed. Now, if I just run this one statement, then you remember that we have stored the value, hello, I'm Devansh Tiwari and this is the data analytics workshop, is inside of the variable. And even if we have removed the command from here, you can see that the statement was once run, and that is the feature of notebooks, that it stores. Like you don't have to run each and everything again and again. The statement that you have run once will be in its memory till you just shut down or you just close the notebook. So that is why notebooks are helpful, because that this way you don't have to run the code multiple times. If you have written a part of code correctly, then you can just run it and it will store the value that it has got from that part of the code, and then you can work separately on the next part of the code, and you won't have to worry in spoiling the previous part of the code while working for the next part. Here you can see when we tried to print it with a comma operator, the value of variable was taken, whatever it was, and it was this, and then it was combined with the next thing that we have passed to the print statement, that was this. This text was printed with a variable. So these are the two things that was done. So the print statement, when we put a comma in between two variables, then both the variables are printed separated by a space. Next, you can also assign an equation to a variable, and if you do that, then the equation will be solved by the Python compiler itself, and the final value will be assigned to the variable. So if I have written 2 plus 2 minus 2, then the answer, which is 2, will be assigned to the variable 2. We can see the variable 2 will return answer 2. Similarly, For solving equations, Python follows the rule of BODMAS. So if suppose there is division of 2 also here, and then we run it, then the answer will be 3.0. But if I just add a bracket here, then the answer will be 2.0, because brackets will be solved first and then the division will be performed. But when the brackets are not there, then firstly the division will be performed and then the equation and then the rest of the equation will be solved. This is how equations and variables work together in Python. Moving on to the different data types of Python. Now, what are data types? Data types are the different things, like till now we have talked about numbers, we have talked about strings. These are the data types of what kind of data is being stored in Python. So the basic data types are, as I just said, integer. Integer is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the negative integers -1, -2, -3. There is float, which is all the point ones, like 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. This is a float. This is not an integer. Even if it is 3.0, but since there is a point 0, this is a float variable and not an integer variable. And then there is a string. A string is basically a set of characters or numbers or any type of symbols that come into double inverted comma or single inverted commas. That is called a string. These are some of the basic types. Then comes some advanced types of structures that are list, tuple, and dictionary. What are these? Let's have a look. So list is a collection of different elements of same or different data types. So here you can see I've made a variable LST. To declare a variable, you just have to type any name, which can be the variable name, equals to sign, and then whatever the value you want to be assigned. Now, how do you declare a list? To declare a list, you use a square bracket. So anything that you put inside a square bracket will take the form of a list. So if I just run this block of command, then you can see that the entire thing is printed. This all thing was stored in the LST variable. And when I check the type of this thing, how do you check the type in Python? There's a method called type. So you just type type, and in round brackets, you just type the variable name, and whatever data type it is, it will return the data type. If you want to check the data type of the variable too, then we just go here, type, we type variable underscore 2, and you can see it is a float. Okay, so this is how it works. And you can see here it was printed in a different way. It directly told what type it is. You can see here it was printed as class list, and that is the reason, because it wasn't in the print statement. So this is the difference that happens when you use a print statement and you don't use a print statement inside of a notebook. Remember, if you are not using a notebook, then you will always have to use the print statement to print anything. Just typing the variable name won't work. Only it is a feature of the notebooks like Google Colab and Jupyter Notebooks that you can just write the variable in the last line of the cell and it will print the variable, or it will print the answer of whatever things that you have written. So this is a list. So list is basically a collection. Now, why should we declare a list where list is used? So suppose there is a thing or there is something that you want to be grouped together. There is some sort of data, like suppose there is just student one and you want to group his marks together, then a list is used. So like you, for that you will be able to create any list name, stu student one. Suppose stu1 is the list name for student one, and then you can write all of his marks, like he got 50 in the first subject, 20 in the second subject, 46 in the third subject, 84 in the next subject, and then 39 in the next subject. And then this will be stored, and then if you want to retrieve it, then indexing method is used. So if this is the list that we have created, LST, and this is the list that we have created, if you want to access any element of this, then the first thing that you need to remember is it starts with 0. So this 1 is at the 0th place. This 2 is at the first place. This is second, this is third, this is fourth, and similarly this 0 is at the ninth place. So whenever we are talking about any variable or whenever we are talking about this type of indexing, always remember in 90% of the programming languages, it begins from 0. the counting will begin from 0 and then it will go on. So if I try to access the 9th element of the list, it should return 0, right? Because this is the 0th element, this is the first element, second element, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth element is 0. We just run it and we can see 0. And not only this, we can even change the value in a variable. So if you see that we have seen 9, list 9, and we want to assign it to 20. As I said that the variable name goes here equal to the value that we want to assign. So for our case, now the variable is the 9th element of the list. So we just do this and we run it, so we can see that this LST is updated to this. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9, and the 0, that was the 9th element, is replaced by 20 now. So this is how list functions. And again, a special feature of Python is that you don't need to put the elements of the same data type in this. So if I just go here and I just print stu_1, this is my list of student marks, right? Suppose I want to store the student's name also in this. So I can just type here Ravi and see, this is a string, this is integer, this is integer, this is integer, this is integer, and this is integer. And say I want to include a maximum marks column also, that will be a float. So you can see there are 3 different types of data types in this. And if I just run it, then everything is stored and it does not give any type of error. If just I access stu0, then it returns the name of student. If I access stu6, then it returns the maximum marks of a student. And if I access anything in between, it returns the marks in that subject. So this is how list can be used. Now, this is, you will have to remember indexes and many things. So if you want a better management of data, list is not the ideal thing that you will be using for storing marks or something, because you can't remember at what place or what index the marks are being stored, right? That was just an example. So for that, there's a better data type that is named dictionary. Okay. So what is dictionary? Firstly, dictionary is declared under curly braces and all the elements are separated by comma, same as list, and it is accessed not by indexes. List was accessed by indexes. It is accessed by keys. So you can see this is a dictionary. It has a key index 0 and it has a key index 999. The index 0 has a value, my name is Divyansh, and the index 999 has a value 999. If I just run this, then you can see when I typed index 999, it gives me an answer 999. Again, checking this, the class is DICT or dictionary, and this is the dictionary that we have made. And see, the key does not need necessarily to be a string. It can be anything. So even this can be a key. So if I just do this and I try to access this, it will still give the same answer. I can also reassign the values. I can do this. And now if I will print the dictionary, you can see this key has this value. So whenever I will type DCT this will give a value of hello. So now where this is useful? This is useful in situations where we want to say really store the marks. So marks in maths. Marks in maths are say 100. Marks in chemistry are 20. So these are the types of things. So now whenever I will say this is stu_1. Okay. Now whenever I'll type stu_1 maths, I will get the marks of student 1 in maths. See, he got 100 marks. So this is where dictionary comes into play. Dictionary is useful to basically manage the values in a much better way. And if we just look at all the other kinds of things, then the string, as I said, that a string is declared in double inverted commas. If you even put a pure number inside of double inverted or single inverted commas, it will also be a string. And then if there is no point, then it is an integer. And if there is a point inside of the number, it is a float. So these are the 4 basic kinds of data types that are involved in Python. So this was all about data types. till now, any type doubt in the data types or anything till now what we have discussed regarding Python that we need to go again or something? Am I audible, guys? Okay, so should we move ahead with the Python introduction part, or is there any doubt that we need to clear? Yes, say, what is the doubt? You mean this LSC9? What about this? Okay. See, I'll just create a new cell and begin it from here. Say I create a list, and this is list one. This list one is the name of our variable, and I just have different kind of values in this. Say first one is a string hi, second is hello, and third one is hey. Okay, so this is a list that we have created, and if I just go here list one and I go here 0. So as I said, in programming the count begins from 0 and then goes further. So the first value that we have in the list is stored at the 0th position. So when I type 0, high will be accessed. Similarly, uh, just give me a minute. List 1, list 2. Okay, and so when I type 0, high will be accessed. When I type 1, the second element will be accessed, which is hello. And when I type 2, the third element will be accessed, that is hey. So let's try and run it. See, so the counting begins from 0. So see it like this, that whenever you type 0, 0 plus 1, the first element in the list will be accessed. Whenever I type 1, 1 plus 1, the second element will be accessed. And whenever I type 2, 2 plus 1, the third element will be accessed. And this is what was happening there. So if I just take up the same list now, this was the list that we had, and I assign it to the same thing. So this is now our new list 1. So now if I type 0, list 0, list 0 will, what it will do is it will access the first element. 0 plus 1, the first element it will access. So what is the first element in the list? That is 1. So if I do list 1, 0th element, it will actually print the first element. And similarly, if I go for the 9th element, so the 9th element is actually 9 plus 1, the 10th element of the list. So what is the 10th element? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This 0 is the 10th element. So when I do 9, it will do as 9 plus 1. It will access the 10th element of the list. So when I do this, we get a 0. This is how when we were doing 9, we were actually getting 0. So if I just rearrange this a bit, maybe that will be easy for you to understand. The first element I make 0, and now the 10th element I make 9. This is how the indexing actually works in the list. So the first element at the 0th place will be 0, and the ninth element at 9 will be 9. So the 0th element is accessed by 0, the first element is accessed by first, the second element is accessed by 2, the third element is accessed by 3, the fourth element is accessed by 4. So if I do 4 here, we'll get a 4. So this is how the indexing in a list or in the programming languages work. So now was it clear? Okay. So now we will be moving to loops. So what are loops and why are loops important? Loops are important if we just want to perform the same thing again and again, like the exact same thing, but just the values in it are changing or something. Or if you want to perform this over a list or dictionary that we have, in that case, loops are used. So let me just print LST. What is in our LST? You can see that our variable name LST contains a list that has these 10 elements. Okay, so now what we can use loops is if we want to access each and every element, like what we just did was LST0 that gives us the 0th element, LST1 gives us the first element. We have to manually do this. We want our computer program to access each and every element for us. In that case, loops are used. So the syntax of loop is very simple. Like if you just write it in English, this is for I in list. So basically for some variable in some other variable. So whatever the values will be in this variable, that will be one by one stored in this variable. So if we just run it, see what happens is it prints everything. So what happened here was, firstly 1 was stored in I, and then it went ahead and printed I, so 1 was printed. Then 2 was stored in I, then 2 was printed. Then it again went up and 3 was stored in I, then 3 was printed. Then it again went up, 4 was stored in I, and then 4 was printed. Then 5 was stored in I, then 5 was printed, and similarly it went on, and it basically looped itself. It stored some value, printed it, went back up, stored some value, printed it, went back up. That is why this is called a loop. It does same and same thing again and again, just by inserting new values in the variable that we have declared it for. So this is how variables work. So now it is not only just used for printing things, you can also use it for other purposes, like in the next step, if we just declare a variable s equals to 0. So now the s variable contains the value 0. And in that variable, now you want to sum up all the elements that are in the list, uh, um, that are in list variable lst. So if we just run this, what it will do is it will sum up all the variables. And how this was achieved is, s has 0 currently in it, and then it went ahead, and in I what happened was the first variable was stored, that is 1. So here what happened was 0 plus 1 was stored in s. So the new value of s became 1, 0 plus 1. Then it went, okay, so let's make it a bit simple. I will do this. What it does is it print s, and it print s is equals to before the iteration s, and I is equals to before the iteration. Okay, and after s. So you can see during the first iteration s was 0, I was 1, and after the iteration s became 1 because what happened was 0 plus 1. Then it went back up, in I 2 was stored. So then for I equal to 2 and s equal to 1, they both added, and 2 plus 1, 3 was stored in s. Then the loop again went on. 3 was stored in I, s also had 3 in it. 3 plus 3, s became 6. Then 4 was stored in I, and s had 6 stored in it. So 6 plus 4, s became 10. And similarly, the loop went on, and finally, when in the last I was 20 and s was already 45. So 45 plus 20, s became 65, and that was the final s that we got as an answer. So this is where loops are used. If you just want to perform a repetitive operation on a set of values that can be iterated over. Now, this does not need to be only list and dictionaries that you can iterate over. If you want to say run a loop 10 to 100 or a specific number of times, then there is a command called range. What range does is, let's first look at it. If I type range here and I type range 10, what it will done is, oh, okay, sorry. If I just type this, so when I type list range 10, what it does is, this gives an output of every number from 0 to 10. But in programming, as I said, that counting starts from 0. So what it will output is 10 numbers from 0. So 10 numbers from 0 is 0 to 9. If I type here range 15, then it will output 15 numbers from 0, which is 0 to 14. This is what range command does. So range command gives you an output of the number of elements that you want. So this is what we can use in for loop instead. And another thing that we have used is length command. So if you see the LST that we have, it has 10 elements. Now we can count that it has 10 elements, but suppose it has some 1000 elements and you don't want to count it, then there's a command called len. So if you just use the len command and you just run it, then it will return that how many elements are inside of the list. There are 10 elements inside of the list. So as you can see, this gives an integer output. Now if I just take this thing and I put it in place of this integer, so now we all know that this will give an answer of 10. So this is range 10 basically. And if this is range 10, then this should go from 0 to 9. So if we just run it, we can see that length of list was solved first and length of list answered 10. That 10 went into the range function. The range function answered range 0 to 10, and that range 0 to 10 was converted to a list which gave an answer of this list, which is ranging from 0 to 9. So this is how range function works. And then when this range length of list was given as an argument in I, then let us see what happened to our I. So I'll just remove this list part. You can say I iterated from 0 to 9 because obviously this thing was being outputted, and when this is iterated over, we have looked at for loops. What happens in for loop is each element is stored in the variable. So one by one, firstly 0 was stored, 1 was stored, then 2, then 3, and similarly all the variables were stored. And if I just type here lst I, then we all know that by using square brackets, we tend to access specific positions inside of a list, right? So by accessing specific positions inside of a list, firstly, 0 will go in the place of I, so 0th position will be accessed. Then 1 will go, so first position will be accessed. Then 2 will go, so second position will be accessed. And this is the way all the elements inside of a list will be accessed. And how we can say all the elements will be accessed? Because the for loop is running for the length of the list itself. So we are just whatever we did here inside of our first loop, we are just doing that inside in a extended version. So you can see the same thing has happened just in an extended version. This was just say was chota sa code, and this one is just a lengthy way to do it. We basically pass the range of how many elements are there, and then we access the element one by one. So this is how for loops work for a list. Talking about how for loops work for a dictionary, you can also access them for a dictionary. So if we just print our dictionary that we declared above, that was DCT. This is our dictionary that has two keys, index 0 and 54637. So if we just run this, we can see that for key in dictionary, what happens is it will iterate over the keys, not the values. So as I said that it has two keys, index 0 and this. So these two values were one by one stored in the key variable. You can see we have printed the key variable first. So these two are the things that are printed. And then using the keys, we tried to access the values that are stored in the dictionary. Okay. And if you don't want to do this way, you don't want to iterate over the keys, you directly want whatever is stored in the values, like my name is Devansh and hello. Then you can directly do is dct.values. What this allows you to do is directly access the values that are being stored in the dictionary. So if I just do it outside of a for loop for 1 second and show you, you can see if I do this, then you can see this returns DCT values data type that has a list stored in it. That is my name is Divansh and hello. These are the two values, right? That were inside of a dictionary. So if you just do dc2.values, this will return this kind of a structure and you can iterate over this also. So in this case, you can directly print the values and you don't need to access in this way, DCT and passing the key. It will directly access the values that are inside of the dictionary. So this was all about the data types and everything. The last thing that we'll be discussing in functions. Before moving to the functions, till now, any doubt in understanding anything regarding Python? If not, then we will move ahead with the functions part. So what are functions? Functions are kind of similar to the loops. Okay, now when I say kind of similar, how are they similar? They are also used to run the same piece of code many times. But this is not like when we talk about loops are basically iterating over something, right? They will run a specific number of times when you want to run them, and they will only run in a group. Like if you want to run a loop 5 times, it will run 5 times, and then only the program will move to the next step. Like if we see here, when we run this loop, both of the things were printed together, and then only we were allowed to move on to the next step in this program. That is this functions part. So this is where loops and functions are different. Both allow us to reuse the code for different values, but one thing is where you can just pass on a value, it will iterate over this and perform the code together for different values, whereas functions provide us reusable code. You can write a piece of code and then you can call a function anytime where it will allow you to do that thing. So let us just take a very basic example. I've defined a function. You can see the basic structure def, and this is a function name. Def means define. Then you can tell a function name, and then the round braces indicate that this is a function. So basically, we are saying define a function named this is a function. And then the most important thing in Python is indentation. So basically, this thing inside of loops and everything, this indentation is important. This is not for show, because if you won't do this, the program won't know what is inside the loop and what is outside the loop. So let me just show you what happens if I just remove this expected and indented block. So what does this mean is if I just give even one space, then it will know that this part comes inside this part. This part is basically a child of the above wala part. That is why indentation is important. And if you will give uneven indentations, like one statement is that much and another statement is this much, then also it will raise an error of indentation error. That means that the blocks are not equally indented, and then that means you need to adjust your indentation accordingly. So this indentation is a very important part. Similarly, for the functions, you need to give an indentation to define what part comes inside the function. So you can say here I have defined print hello inside of the function. This is a function, and when I run this thing, the hello is not printed. Okay, nothing happens, no output. Why? Because the function is just defined and it is not being called yet. Now, what do you mean by calling a function? Calling a function is typing this part, typing the name of the function and then round braces, nothing else. So you can see here I am calling the function 3 times. Now before 3 times, let me do this. Let me just call the function 1 time. You can see a hello is printed. Now till now we have seen that whatever the output is, it comes in the block where it is the statement is written. You see the print values, then the output was here. The DCT values, the output was here. So basically now you can imagine what happened here is, this is a function, this line basically called this print statement inside this block. So when I type this is a function, the print statement was executed here. So now if I type this line 3 times, you can expect that the statement will be called 3 times, because firstly this line called the print statement, then this line called the print statement, and then this line called the print statement. And talking about indentation, you can see if I just write print hi here, you can see this block is indented and this block is not indented. You can see hi will be printed here because it was not intended, so it is not a part of the function, and hi won't be printed here because again it was not a part of the function. So this was just some basic functions. Now when I said reusable code, you just don't want to just print statements again and again. You want to pass some values, like in for loops you are able to iterate over lists, right? In functions also you will like to do the same. So how do you achieve that? Then we define another function. We use the def keyword, def. This is also a function, is another name that we are giving. And what is the difference you might notice this time is, we are passing some argument. Now whatever is written inside this curly bracket is an argument. Okay, so you can see we can define any argument name and we can assign it a default value. So if you don't assign this default value, it also works, but assigning a default value is a good habit. Why? I will tell you. So you can see whatever is this variable, this is just a variable, and I can even print it inside of this statement. So if I just run this and run these two things, you can see when I passed this 10 inside of this function, what happened here was this 10 went up and was stored in this but with arguments variable. So when I printed but with argument, the 10 that I passed from below was going up and being stored there, and then that was printed. But when I didn't pass any value inside of it, nothing went. And if nothing went, then what was supposed to be printed? The default value that I assigned. I assigned 0 as the default value, so 0 was being printed. Now what would have happened if I wouldn't have assigned a default value? Let's see. If I passed 10, then 10 was still being printed. But if I didn't pass anything, there was an error that there was one positional argument required that was missing. So that is why you should always assign a default value, and that allows you to skip these kinds of error when you don't want to pass a value, but you will still have to pass a value manually. So this was all about Python introduction, and I hope you all are still with me, because now we are going to start the actual hands-on project where you will also be working on your collab with us. So should we begin with the stock price prediction now? There is one yes. Where are all the other participants? Okay. So if you are ready for stock price prediction, let's move ahead with stock price prediction. So what we will be doing in this project? So firstly, as we have discussed, these are some text boxes that I have added in Google Colab. Okay, wait a minute. In Google Colab, you can directly add a text box from here. And in Google Colab, you have better editing options. Suppose if you want to add some bold text or add some italic text or any other thing, then everything is provided for adding some text boxes. This is how you can create some text boxes, and that allows you to achieve much more managed and well structured code when you are creating a notebook, instead of just putting up some code. So that, like, I created this notebook days back, right, for my presentation, but now also if I will see, that I know what is going on because I have labeled it correctly. So this is where notebook comes into play. This allows you to keep your code well managed. So this is our stock price prediction project, and what we will be doing in this thing is, in this project we will be working on accurately predicting the future closing value of a given stock over a given period of time, and this will be done in 4 stages that we have discussed in the end of our PPT. Also, we will be gathering some data, we will be pre-processing it, we will be visualizing it so that we can know that what are some good things that we can do, and then we will be building our model. These are the 4 things that we will be doing. So beginning with the first step, data gathering. So as I said in the presentation, so gathering data. Data gathering can be done in 3 ways. First is data sets that are available on the internet. There are websites like Kaggle.com and other websites that allow you to download data sets directly. Then the second way is API calls that we will be doing currently, and I will tell you how API calls work. And the third one is web scraping. This is when no data is available from the above 2 sources and you need some data, like you need some Twitter tweets to analyze them, like what is going on Twitter. Then you need the third type, that is web scraping, where you basically fetch HTML code, and on that fetched HTML code you apply some Python algorithm that allow you to get the data and then store them inside